And we will begin with a short daily review just to recap and check if we remember what we have studied. How about just letting me know in the chat whether you could complete the cholera related video and reading from yesterday. I saw that some of you have submitted your day one pathogen reading material questions. Not everyone submitted. What about reading about cholera? Did all of you do it, or was there anyone who struggled? Okay, thank you for those of you who are sharing. Muskan, Ritika, Ekta, Azba, Khushi and Arya. Great. All right. If you haven't done, then please make sure that you go ahead and complete the reading of both the days. In your homework today, you will see some sample questions and how to answer them, and some questions for you to solve around cholera. And I'll also share the answers with you so that you can check your own work. Okay. Coming to our daily review for today. On your screen are some keywords with their meaning. Okay, I had done a similar activity with section A2, but unfortunately the day when I did this activity, only Ishita was there in the class. So I think today we can do some keyword recap, but this time the keywords are different. So the keywords are related to diseases that we have either read in our homework or we have discussed in the class. And the meanings are on the right hand side. Go ahead and use your Zoom Annotate tool and match the correct keyword with their meaning. Let's take a minute and start matching. Okay. I would recommend that one student uses one color so that I can distinguish who, if I tell that red color, this arrow is wrong, then you will also know which matching was correct and which matching was incorrect from your end. Ritika, there is an Annotate tool on the Zoom bar. Notice? Did you find it, Ritika? You can unmute and talk to me.
No, I'm not able to find it.
Are you using your laptop or phone?
Laptop.
Okay, so girls, those who are using your school laptop, can you just help Ritika and tell her where to find the Annotate button? Could anyone please unmute and tell her? Because for me, the screen may not look exactly like how it is looking for you.
There is a view options up. There we will find the Annotate. Ritika.
Can you tell her with respect to that audio video icon, which way should she look at?
So when you wait a second.
Is it in the more button?
No, it's up. It's not in the more button, but
it's on top.
Yeah, on the top. There's a view option in that you'll get the annotate option as well. When you click it.
Ritika, did you find?
No, I can only find three options there. One says fit to window, the other is original size, and the last is request remote control.
And do you see 3 dots or 3 lines anywhere?
No.
Or view as, or view tools?
Yes.
Yes, in that you will see Annotate.
For view thing, it only says No, it says standard side by side speaker or side by side gallery.
On the top of your screen, can you see a green color bar?
Yeah.
Just hover your cursor on it and you will see many options over there.
No, I can see only 3 options.
Okay, leave it.
Maybe she can write it in the chat box.
Yes, or you can just unmute, stay unmute and tell me what you think the meaning is. And I think you need to figure out how to find out different tools on Zoom as soon as possible, Ritika, because we'll be using this in most of our classes. So it is there, but you are not able to get it. So make sure that you check with your friends and find this out soon so that you will be able to participate in the upcoming activities. Okay. All right, so we can see answers already on the screen. Most of you say that incidence means that incidence of a disease is number of people who are diagnosed with the disease over a period of a certain amount of time, a week, month, or year. That is absolutely correct. And mortality rate means number of death in a place over a particular length of time. Mostly mortality rate is calculated over a period of years. So your state government, your municipal corporations, they do one round of survey in your locality and they count the total number of newborn children and the number of death in the locality. Or every time there is a death in your community, it is registered in the in Pune, it is Pune Municipal Corporation. In your respective native cities or states, they'll have their own corporations. Similarly, mortality rate is tracking the number of death in a population over mostly a period of year. Prevalence, on the other hand, mostly this is where the confusion happens. Students confuse between prevalence and incidence. So the only difference between prevalence and incidence is incidence is how many people are suffering from the same disease in a given span of time, a week, month, or year. Prevalence means number of people who have the disease in just a very vast period of time, maybe a decade or a century, or a given date. Like on 15th of February, how many people were detected with COVID-19 and they showed symptoms. So that is the prevalence of the disease. Whereas incidence of the disease is the number of people who are diagnosed over a bigger span of time. Okay. The next is transmission. Transmission in biology, transmission means spreading. How is the pathogen passing from a host who is already infected to a healthy person who is not infected? So this is also correct, transmission. Prevalence is correct. And epidemic is occurs when a sudden increase of a disease happens in a number of people. So epidemic is when in the first count, let's say thousands of people suddenly start showing symptoms of malaria. That is an epidemic. That means the disease was spreading and there was no symptoms for a very long time. And suddenly many people at the same time started showing symptoms. So epidemic breaks out when there is a natural disaster in a country. So people were leading normal, healthy lives and suddenly there is an earthquake. Because of earthquake, water supply becomes contaminated. People don't get clean food, or they don't have a proper place to live, so they have to live wherever they find place. So if others are infected, that infection is easily transmitted to the healthy people, and suddenly number of patients suffering from that disease suddenly will boom. That is an epidemic. Now what is so Ekta is asking in the chat, can you please explain the difference between a pandemic and epidemic? An epidemic is a sudden outburst of a disease when at a time, many thousands of people start showing symptoms of the disease in a certain location. But pandemic means where thousands of people start showing symptoms of the same disease, but they belong to different parts of the whole world. For example, the COVID-19 is a pandemic. Why? While there were hundreds and thousands of people showing symptoms of COVID in the United States. At the same time, large number of people were showing COVID-19 symptoms in Africa, in South America, in Europe, in Asia, in Australia. Wherever there is human population and wherever there was isolation not done, this disease was spreading very fast. Pan means all over the world. Epidemic means in one place, suddenly large number of people are showing symptoms of the same disease. Did I answer your question, Ikta?
Yes, Ms. Anvita, thank you.
Any other doubts regarding these keywords? Okay, so if I'm talking about, let's say in my data, I'm talking about people suffering from tuberculosis in the year 1960. So I'm counting the total number of patients who had tuberculosis or were detected with tuberculosis in the year 1960, 1960. So am I talking about the incidence of the disease or the prevalence of the disease? Can you tell? If I'm talking about the number of cases of tuberculosis in the year 1960, I'm giving you a data. Will that data help you know about the incidence of tuberculosis, or will that data give you the prevalence of tuberculosis? What do you think, Khushi?
Prevalence,
Why?
because the definition is who have the disease at a given point of time, and you said the year, so
Yes, I specified the year as 1960. So only in 1960, I want to know how many people were suffering from this disease. So it is at a given point of time. So this is prevalence of tuberculosis. But if I tell you that you, this is the, take this is the data of people who were diagnosed with COVID-19 between 2020 to 2022. Then that is the incidence, that is number of people who are diagnosed over the period of year 2020 to year 2022. So when a period of time is given, which has a range, then that will give you the incidence of the disease. That means with time, how much did the cases rise or fall or remain constant? When you study about that, that means you're studying the incidence of the disease. But at a given point of time, how many people were suffering from that disease? If you're collecting that data, then you're getting to know the prevalence of the disease only for that year. Okay. All right. With that ends our daily review. And next, we are going to look at the next thing on the agenda, that is 4 main infectious disease that we will be studying in the AS level syllabus. So through this discussion, you will only get a brief sneak peek about these 4 different infectious diseases. And I'll tell you why these diseases are important. So that's why hence the heading of the slide is the world importance of infectious disease. Why do we study about infectious disease? The 21st century has witnessed a wave of severe infectious disease outbreaks, not least the COVID-19 pandemic, which has had a devastating impact on lives and livelihood around the globe. Similarly, now, because now this is a pandemic, we are understanding what a disease can do to the country's economy, to the people's condition, to the social, emotional condition. But before the COVID-19 pandemic also, there were countries who were badly stricken with certain diseases. In the year 2003, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus outbreak had occurred in the South American and Central African regions. In the year 2009, swine flu pandemic had devastated many parts all around the world. It was not only confined to one country or continent, the whole world was struck with swine flu in 2009. 2012, the Middle East suffered from respiratory syndrome coronavirus outbreak. These are all different strains of coronavirus that had created a lot of terror and severe health deficit in many countries before 2020. Then between 2013 to 2016, West Africa was completely shook by the Ebola virus. That was an epidemic. Suddenly, most of the countries in West Africa started having large number of people suffering from Ebola virus infection. In 2015, there was Zika virus epidemic in most of Africa again. This resulted in substantial morbidity and mortality while spreading across borders to infect people in multiple countries. Morbidity, what does morbidity means? Morbidity basically means that the condition of suffering from a disease or a medical condition. So if someone is already suffering from a disease, the pain and the mental stress that the person goes through is a morbidity or an effect of the disease that they are suffering. Mortality means their death rate. Because of these different types of epidemic that outbroke in different countries in different points of the year, people who were traveling from one country to country became the carriers of the disease to other countries. And these pathogens got a chance to cross borders and enter many countries at the same time. An understanding of biology of pathogen and its mode of transmission is essential if disease has to be controlled and ultimately prevented. So why are we studying about diseases as learners? Because we want to prepare the future world to many such devastating outbreaks, and so that our future generations are prepared, not just to save themselves, but also to save others through science and technology, through medicine. So in order to know what the disease is, you need to recognize the symptoms of patients, and you need to administer them with correct treatment, correct therapy, and also protect those people in the population who have not got the disease in such a way that they will never get the disease, so that you can give them advice, you can give them prevention measures so that they are safe. So in order to secure our future, we need to recognize these diseases and know how to treat them and protect people who have not got these diseases yet and prevent them from getting it. So in the chat, I noticed that some of you were sharing that Africa seems to be suffering from diseases most of the time. There is a reason behind this. The reason is access to hospital care and medicines. Just having access to medical care and awareness plays a very important role. If accessibility is not there, because most of African countries lack that connectivity to the rest of the world. That is why, and also due to their geographical location, dense forest areas or extreme desert conditions, they are not easy to be reached out, and they are not well connected through media with the world. Medical facility, financial conditions are not strong enough, government doesn't have enough funds, and that's what we are going to actually explore, that an infectious disease can affect so much to a country, not just the health of individuals, but globally the country's economic status also deteriorates. So keeping that in mind, we are going to study about 4 important diseases. Sorry for the typing error over here, not 6. There are actually 2 other infectious diseases, but we will be discussing them when we start our syllabus. In the tasters, we are only going to get a sneak peek about cholera, malaria, HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis. So I want you to draw this table in your notebook, and as I take you through different slides for each of these diseases, you will, in your reading or in our discussion from the slide, you'll quickly pick up what is the causative agent. If you know the causative agent, can you recognize what type of organism is this? And how does this causative agent spread from an infected person to uninfected person. So we will go through cholera, malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis. I'll wait for a minute for you to draw this table in your notebook. Please give me a thumbs up once this table is ready. And it's better if you use at least half a page and have some space to write inside these rows. Give me a thumbs up if your table is ready. You have to make 4 rows and 4 columns. Aspa, when did you drop out? What did you hear last?
I was there with you guys when we were discussing the last slide about the world diseases and stuff.
Why is it important to learn about infectious disease? So I was just talking
Yeah.
about how infectious diseases can change the economic, social, or environmental condition of any country. And therefore we need to learn as biologists, if we want to save our future from such infectious diseases. Therefore, we need to recognize what symptoms, what are the pathogens that are causing the disease, and how these pathogens spread, the mode in which they get transmitted. So right now we are copying this table in our notebook, because in the next few slides, I'll be taking you through these infectious diseases. And as I'm teaching, you will be filling this slide. So can you quickly make a note of this empty table? Thank you, Muskan. I'll wait for at least 5 students to tell me that they are ready, and then I'll move to the next slide. Thank you, Ekta. Thank you, Ritika. Okay, Khushi is ready. Those who are done with the table, is there anything that you want to ask me about the table before we see the slide? Like, do you have question as in, Miss Amrita, what should I write in causative agent? Or Miss Amrita, what is the meaning of this last column? Anything that you want to know if your table is ready?
Yes, I have a question. For
Yes.
a mode of transmission, do we write only direct contact or indirect contact, or specifically?
So if it is direct contact, then how is that direct contact happening? Is it blood and blood of the infected and uninfected person, are they mixing? Or is it semen mixing with vaginal fluid? That is why the person is getting the disease. Or is it, if it is indirect contact, is it airborne, waterborne? Or is it because of droplet, inhaling droplets which contain the pathogen in the air? You have to say that in short phrases. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
And do you know what to
you.
write for causative agent? Do you all know what to write for causative agent? The first column?
The pathogens.
Yes, the pathogen. Basically, causative agent is the other name for pathogen. The main organism which is causing the disease is the causative agent. And I have a question in the chat. What should we write for type of organism? Very good. I was waiting for this question. For type of organism, you have to write whether it is an insect, whether it is a bacteria or whether it is a virus, or if it is not a bacteria or virus, then it should be a unicellular microorganism or protist. Okay. So we are going to see 3 different types of pathogens in these diseases. Let me just give you some hint. Some will be bacteria type of pathogen, some will be virus type of pathogen, and some will be microorganisms. Now the problem is virus and bacteria are also microorganisms. What is a microorganism? Anything that is not visible to a naked eye. You have to use a microscope. So these microorganisms are neither bacteria nor virus. They are called protists. Protists are all the living organisms in the world who are unicellular and they have a well-defined nucleus. So they are eukaryotic. If you remember from our first taster discussion, bacteria are prokaryotic. Let's see if we remember prokaryotic, eukaryotic difference or not. Okay. And viruses are not prokaryotic or eukaryotic. They're just viruses. They don't fall into these categories. Yes, malaria is a protist. Malaria is caused by a protist. You must have studied that in your environmental management topics, right? Okay, let's quickly dive into the first infectious disease, that is cholera. So here are some features of this disease. I have highlighted important points. That is, cholera is a waterborne and foodborne disease. As you're reading, check if you have any information to fill in the table. Cholera is transmitted through contaminated sources of water or food. Most of the infected people do not show any symptoms and they pass out large number of bacteria through their feces. What is feces, girls? Do you know what is the meaning of the word feces? No? Yes, it is the loo or the bowel or the stool. Okay. So it is the defecated, undigested waste that they are releasing. Along with the undigested waste, they are also releasing large quantity of bacteria in their stool. Okay. The bacteria containing feces can contaminate the water supply. So if the person is passing out large number of stool near a water body, like a river or a stream, then it washes into the water body. Now the water body gets contaminated with these bacteria, which cause cholera. This is one way in which cholera bacteria can enter into our water. Another way is if someone has cholera bacteria or is infected by cholera and they are not washing their hands and cooking food or touching the food while making the food, they are coming in contact with the food. They are using or they're eating food which are kept in the open near places where people are defecating or passing their feces. So there are 2 ways in which this bacteria enters your food and water. One is through the contaminated rivers where people have defecated, or through infected people who are cooking your food without washing hands. So this is how cholera is transmitted from uninfected person to infected person. There was a severe cholera outbreak in many parts of the world, and at one point of time in the 18th century, just like now we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic, cholera had become a pandemic at that time. So with time, people started knowing how to treat this disease, and gradually now cholera is only seen in places where there is extreme natural disasters and poverty. Not a very common feature, but in probably around 1818 or 1883, this whole knowledge about cholera disease started from India. During the British rule, the cholera epidemic actually started in the Ganges River Delta, in the river banks of River Ganga. People started suffering from cholera, and that is how it started and started spreading to all other countries when infected people started traveling all around the world. Okay. Now we are going to move to the next disease. So quickly fill in the table with whatever details you got. I think there is one detail that is missing and I need to tell you. Yes, the name of this bacteria which causes, so it says that the person who has consumed contaminated water or is passing feces near the water, they're releasing large number of bacteria. So this bacteria only has something to do with cholera, which is found in the feces of infected people. This bacteria's name is Vibrio cholerae. Vibrio cholerae. This is a scientific name. So I have written the first name in capital letter and the second word in the name in small letter, and then I've underlined them separately. Vibrio cholerae is the bacteria which causes cholera, and this is how Vibrio cholerae passes from one person to another through their feces. They contaminate the water, and if a healthy person consumes that contaminated water, they also get Vibrio cholerae inside their body, and they start showing cholera symptoms. What are cholera symptoms? Vomiting, severe loose motion, and passing of loose motion in the form of diarrhea. Okay. Diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration means body starts losing large volumes of water at the same time. So the person suffering from extreme cases of cholera will vomit and pass diarrhea in such large quantity that suddenly there will be a water shortage inside their body, and if not treated immediately, they can die. It is fatal. If untreated, it is fatal. Okay. Now I will be moving on to the next disease. Looking at this animation, you can guess what is happening. This is malaria. Kushi, I will not tell that. First, you make your decision whether this cholera transmission is direct or indirect. When we come back after watching all the slides, we will discuss the table. So right now, you fill what you think you know. So malaria. Malaria is transmitted through a vector, and that vector is a female Anopheles mosquito. Please note, a vector is not the causative agent. A vector is only the carrier of the causative agent. In this picture, the vector is the mosquito. When it is piercing its mouth into the human skin, its saliva contains the malarial parasite, which is entering the human blood. So the parasite is sitting inside the mouth of the mosquito and waiting. When the mosquito bites a human being, the parasite will come out of the mosquito's mouth part and enter the bloodstream of the human. So here the mosquito is like a vehicle, a vector. Mosquito is not the main cause of malaria. The parasite which is inside the mosquito's mouth, that is the cause. So how is malaria transmitted? Mosquitoes feed on infected humans' blood. Then they take up some pathogens, gamete or cells with the blood meal. The male and female gamete fuse in the mosquito's gut or mosquito's stomach and develop into infective stages and move to mosquito's salivary gland. When the mosquito bites another person again, at that time, mosquito will release its saliva into the uninfected person. And in that saliva, these malaria parasites are residing. They enter into a fresh human's blood altogether. Then these parasites start eating the person's red blood cells. The red blood cell provide them food so they can multiply. That is, they can reproduce inside the human blood. Malaria may also be transmitted through blood transfusion. That is, if a person who is donating blood has a malaria parasite in their blood and the blood is not tested, then by accidental or careless blood transfusion or blood donation, a healthy person may end up getting malaria from the donor. Yes, Asba, not only do they eat red blood cells, they after eating red blood cells, they will enter the blood, swim and reach the liver and start eating liver cells also. Now, these malarial parasites are called protists or protoctists. Both are the same thing. Protists is the old name. New classification regulations say that they are called protoctists. Okay, malarial parasites are protists or protoctists, and they can also pass through the placenta of a pregnant mother and enter into the bloodstream of the fetus. So if a pregnant woman gets malaria, there is a possibility, if the pregnant woman does not get tested or diagnosed and does not start treatment, then the malarial parasite will travel through the mother's blood, cross the placenta and enter the fetus blood also. So when the baby is born already with malaria, which is a very critical condition and may take the life of the baby. So therefore, if a person is showing malarial symptoms, immediately they need to get diagnosed and start their treatment. What are some common symptoms of people who have malaria? They get fever in the daytime, and at night they will get chills. Chills means they will start shivering. As soon as the fever goes down, the body will start shivering and trembling. So these are the symptoms of malaria: recurring fever and chills after the fever. Okay. Again, one more thing that I want to add over here is the name of the malarial parasite. The name of the malarial parasite is Plasmodium. And there are many species of Plasmodium that can cause malaria. To us, 4 species are known. Species are the subvarieties under Plasmodium. One is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, and Plasmodium malariae. These are 4 different species of Plasmodium. All 4 of them can cause malaria. The most deadliest one out of them is this one. This is the most deadliest malarial parasite out of all the 4, Plasmodium falciparum. Yeah. Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, and Plasmodium malariae. And they come under the classification group called protists or protoctists. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you got enough time to fill up the table for malaria. You ready to move to the next slide? Ritika says she's ready. What about others? All right. Ishita and Anam.
Miss Amrita,
Yeah.
why is it only the female mosquito?
Because I told you yesterday in the class, what do the male mosquitoes feed on? Didn't I say in your section? In which section was I talking about? What do female mosquitoes feed on and what? Yes. Those who are sharing answers, I just want to tell you that please share your answers so that others can read. If you're sending direct answers to me, I have to read it out again. So feel free to share your answer so that it is visible to everyone. Yes, the male mosquitoes, actually they are frugivorous. They either feed on nectar from flowers, or they feed on pollens, or they feed on fruits, the juice from the fruits. They suckle on fruits. Whereas the female mosquitoes are blood feeders. Does that make sense? Asba? Okay.
Yes, Ms. Amrita.
All right. I will now move to the next disease. That is TB. When a person suffers from TB, they're suffering from lung infection. And because the lung is infected, enough oxygen does not reach the blood, and the person is always constantly coughing. And because of severe coughing, all the entire chest muscle region starts aching. Because every time you cough, your muscles in the chest region are contracting and then relaxing to just blow that air out. So constant coughing leads to physical discomfort in the chest region, and this is because of another bacteria. Okay, so this time in malaria we studied the pathogen was a protist. In cholera the pathogen was a bacteria. Again we are studying about another disease that is tuberculosis, where the pathogen is a bacteria. So let's read about tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is spread through air by droplet infection. What is the meaning of droplet infection? That means this is spread by infection in the air. So if a person who has TB will cough or sneeze into the air, and the saliva and the mucus droplets that are sprayed out from the person's nose or mouth into the air will now hang in the air as droplet. Anyone who is in the surrounding, who is inhaling those droplets through their nose, will also inhale the TB bacteria because the bacteria is in those droplets. Okay. Transmission happens when uninfected people inhale the droplets. Where is this very common? This is common in overcrowded places. TB spreads among people living in overcrowded conditions. So commonly, who are the people who suffer from TB? Homeless people, people living in substandard, means below the standard of safety and protection from natural disasters, people living in housing conditions which are substandard, or living in impoverished condition, or people who live in condition where there is severe unhygienic surrounding, or because of that they have very low immune system, the immune system is very weak. People who already have HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, their immune system is so weak that they can easily get tuberculosis. If you remember the first video that we watched, people who have immune system related weaknesses, they are more vulnerable to infectious diseases. This is a bright example of that. Someone who already has a weak immune system because of HIV virus will be they will easily catch the tuberculosis bacteria infection in their lungs. Now, the next point is very important. The name of this bacteria is Mycobacterium bovis. Mycobacterium bovis is the bacteria which causes TB. And how is this TB commonly spread? One is definitely by droplet infection, human to human. We can also get TB from cattle like cows. So if cows and goats are suffering from TB infection, this bacteria, then their body will be covered with this Mycobacterium bovis, and their milk also is contaminated, their meat is contaminated with Mycobacterium bovis. So people who are having the beef or the milk of these infected cows, they can also get tuberculosis. At one point of time, people thought that TB is eradicated, or through medication and treatment now, no one is going to get TB. But suddenly in the 1990s, there was a sudden research, a rise or outbreak of another TB epidemic, which proved that TB is still there. People still are vulnerable to TB as an infectious disease. Yes. So no, Ritika, it is not. If it is found in cattle, milk and meat, it is not food-borne, but it is animal-borne. Because not everyone will have milk and meat in their diet. Foodborne disease means food is open, uncovered, and flies are sitting on it, or infected person is touching it, and some uninfected person is eating it. That is foodborne. But here the cause is the cattle. So this is animal-borne as well as droplet infection. Okay. Bell has rung, so I'll just quickly take you through the AIDS and HIV slide. So AIDS full form is Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. This is caused by the HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus. This virus is unable to survive outside the human body. So they're always looking for human hosts. If they find a human host, they will enter the human host's white blood cells. So they attack the white blood cells, that is the T lymphocytes, and they hijack the cell. What is the meaning of hijacking? They just, because viruses don't have any cellular feature, they will invade the human white blood cell and start using humans' DNA to make their own things. So HIV virus is spread by intimate human contact. So if a person has HIV virus, that means their immune system is first of all very weak. Now, how did this person get the HIV virus? Through unprotected sex, or if the mother was having HIV and that's when she became pregnant, then the fetus will also have HIV through placenta. Or if a person is sharing needles and they are drug addicts, then different people will use the same needle, so blood and blood will mix. Therefore, they can also get HIV from infected individuals. So these are some ways in which HIV can spread: through unprotected sexual intercourse, careless blood donation where donor has HIV but recipient does not know, sharing of needles by drug users, mother to child also. HIV virus can cross the placenta and enter the child's bloodstream. So if the HIV virus starts attacking the white blood cells and the person is showing symptoms like always they have some kind of infection, immune system is very weak. When your immune system is weak, 365 days the person is suffering from a major disease. Okay. There are new cases saying that AIDS and HIV have been cured fully in 1 or 2 special cases, but this is extremely difficult. And people who can afford to do that, they have to be financially really at a good place. Otherwise, they'll not be able to afford this kind of regular blood transfusion, regular checkup. So if the person can actually get new white blood cells from a donor, then there is a chance. With advanced medicine and technology nowadays, the treatment for HIV and AIDS has improved a lot from where it was 10 years ago. In fact, there have been vaccines now, even though the vaccines are not 100% guaranteed to protect someone, but they do work up to a certain percentage. But completely curing the person is rare, it's very rare. So this is about HIV, and yes, HIV can also transfer from mother to child. Suppose the child is safe, still did not receive the HIV virus luckily, but during the childbirth, mothers and child's blood mixes. That's when they get the HIV virus from the mother, and also through mother's breast milk. So yes, time is up. Okay, we are done. All right, girls, we are going to stop here, and we will continue with this discussion in tomorrow's class. For today, there is no additional homework. We will just continue learning about cholera tomorrow, and then we'll do some practice. Okay. Thank you.
Bye, Miss Amrita. Thank you.
Bye, Miss Amrita. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.